On a dark Los Angeles freeway, March 3, 1991, a moment unfolded that would change America forever. Red and blue lights flashed as a car pulled over. Rodney King stepped out, unsteady on his feet. From a nearby apartment balcony, a man named George Holliday raised his new camcorder, thinking to himself, "Someone needs to see this." He pressed record, and the world would soon bear witness. That grainy, shaky footage found its way onto television screens across the nation. In living rooms everywhere, there were gasps, then silence, then a rising tide of anger. For the first time, millions of people who had never experienced or seen police violence firsthand were watching it play out in their homes. What had been whispered about in marginalized communities for generations was suddenly undeniable. It was raw, it was brutal, and it was on tape. This wasn't just another news story. It was a mirror held up to the nation's face, forcing a look at a reality many had chosen to ignore. The tape became a symbol, a piece of evidence that promised accountability. A year later, the scene shifted to a courtroom in Simi Valley. 4 LAPD officers, Lawrence Powell, Timothy Wind, Theodore Briseno, and Stacy Kuhn, sat quietly as the now famous video was played again. But this time, it was slowed down, analyzed frame by agonizing frame. Their defense attorneys argued that the officers were in fear for their lives, that King was resisting arrest, and that the force used was necessary to subdue a dangerous suspect. They painted a picture of chaos and threat, urging the jury to see the incident through the eyes of law enforcement. The prosecution countered, arguing that fear does not justify brutality. They presented the video as clear evidence of excessive force, an unconscionable beating of a man who was already on the ground. The prosecutor's voice echoed in the courtroom. This was not policing, this was an assault. The case wasn't just about the actions of 4 officers, it became a trial of the entire system. The jury, which notably had no black members, retreated to deliberate. The city, and indeed the country, held its breath, waiting for a verdict that felt like it would be a judgment on justice itself. On April 29, 1992, the wait was over. In electronic stores, offices, and homes, people gathered around televisions. The breaking news banner flashed across the screen. A news anchor's voice announced the verdict. All 4 officers had been acquitted on the charges of assault. A wave of disbelief and shock washed over the city. In one store, a young man named Marcus whispered what so many were thinking. "That's it. After everything we saw, the acquittal felt like a betrayal." The video evidence, which had seemed so conclusive, was dismissed. The system that was supposed to deliver justice had, in the eyes of many, failed spectacularly. That feeling of betrayal didn't stay quiet for long. It spilled out onto the streets. The whispers of disbelief turned into shouts of anger. In south-central Los Angeles, years of frustration over systemic racism, economic inequality, and aggressive policing reached a boiling point. The verdict wasn't the cause. It was the spark that lit a fuse that had been laid down over decades. Sirens began to wail as fires lit up the night sky. Crowds surged through the streets, their collective pain and rage erupting into open rebellion. The city fractured at the intersection of Florence and Normandy. A truck driver named Reginald Denny was pulled from his vehicle and brutally beaten. The scene captured by news helicopters hovering above. A woman in the crowd shouted a phrase that would become the rallying cry of the uprising: "No justice, no peace." Police forces, overwhelmed and unprepared, retreated from entire neighborhoods. For a time, it felt as though the city was at war with itself. The social contract had been broken, and chaos filled the void. For 6 long, terrifying days, Los Angeles burned. The smoke from hundreds of fires blanketed the skyline, a visible symbol of the city's pain. It was a montage of destruction and desperation. Buildings were engulfed in flames. Businesses built over generations were reduced to ashes. The National Guard was deployed, turning parts of the city into a militarized zone. Families barricaded themselves in their homes, listening to the sirens and helicopters. In Koreatown, shop owners, feeling abandoned by the police, took to their rooftops with firearms to defend their properties from looters, highlighting the complex racial tensions that crisscrossed the city. The riots claimed more than 50 lives, injured thousands, and caused over $1 billion in property damage. The nation was forced to watch, to confront the ugly reflection of its own deep-seated divisions. Then, amidst the smoke and anger, a different voice emerged. From his hospital room, bruised and recovering, Rodney King faced the cameras. His voice was frail, trembling with emotion, but his words carried immense weight. He didn't speak of anger or revenge. Instead, he made a simple, profound plea. "Can we all get along? Can we get along?" In that moment, the room fell silent. His question, born from his own personal tragedy, became a question for the entire country. It cut through the noise of the riots and the political posturing, asking a fundamental question about our shared humanity. When the sun finally set on the 6th day, the fires were out, but the scars remained. Children walked to school past charred buildings and shattered storefronts. Community leaders, activists, and politicians gathered for uneasy talks, trying to figure out how to rebuild not just the structures, but the trust that had been so completely shattered. The Rodney King case and the subsequent riots didn't start America's conversation about race and police brutality, but they dragged it into the light, making it impossible to ignore any longer. That grainy videotape from 1991 became a historical marker, and the question Rodney King asked in the aftermath still echoes through our streets today, reminding us of the work that is still left to be done. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the moments that have shaped our world.